live. Welcome back, everyone. Excited to be here again. My name is Russ, and of course, I'm here with Bill and Matt. We're getting to the dog days of summer now, Matt. And I have to say, you're looking pretty tan today. You're looking pretty sharp. You've been getting outside doing a little activity?
A little activity, going to the beach a little bit.
Nice. We're in person today. This is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
The podcast room.
Yeah, yes. We're in the actual podcast room in the office. We're getting ready for hopefully return to work here in not too distant future. I think we have some updates today for folks. Bill, is there an update? Do we have like a follow-up to a prior episode?
It's a callback, I think is what it's called in the biz.
I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. Yes. We had an episode, I don't know, a few months ago where we talked with David Chun from Equilar about pay equity diversity kind of initiative that he was working with. Equilar was working with NASDAQ, and NASDAQ just got approved by the SEC to have this their diversity program, which Matt, you're looking at the press
I have
release.
the details. The proposal was to require listed companies to have diverse boards or explain why they do not. So some of the details are that the proposal requires that companies have 2 diverse directors, including one who identifies as female and another as an underrepresented minority or LGBTQ, or explain why they do not.
Right.
So that's
it's
good
kind
progress.
Of a big, it's big news because NASDAQ covers thousands of publicly traded companies, so there's a lot. At least hundreds, lots of them. But I mean,
dozens, Bill.
Yes,
dozens.
Yes, but it's the names, the brands you recognize. Right. So it's at a minimum a statement, but it's an actual
These are companies you're probably doing business with. Yeah,
in the diversity and pay equity.
And it was great, David. Initiative. We had David on the show a little while ago, and he was a fantastic guest. It was so fun to hear about what he was doing. So if you want to know more about what David and his organization's working on, go back and listen to that episode. You can catch all up on that.
We'll have to bring him back for another episode.
For a victory lap.
Follow-up. Yeah, a little victory lap. That's awesome. It's great to see that.
Congratulations, Dave.
Yeah.
And NASDAQ.
And NASDAQ, exactly. Right. And hopefully others will follow suit. So, I think today we were thinking about, thank you for that communications, Bill. I think today we were thinking about other kinds of communications. I just got back from Texas Total Rewards Conference down there in Houston. Thank you for having us down there. And it was great to see everybody in person. But one of the things that came up there a lot also was this idea that even though everyone's still very remote and we're thinking about coming back, the fact of the matter is most people are still remote. And what we hear over and over again from Total Rewards and HR leaders is, hey, communications is key. You got to reach out to your employees. You got to make sure they're engaged. And we want to make sure we're also listening to you guys. So I thought it might be kind of good, you guys are listeners, to go to the mailbag, Bill. Bill, do we have any kind of communications from our... I had to work really hard on that segue, Bill. I hope you appreciate it. Do you have any mail that we should be reviewing here from our listeners?
It's not the best segue ever, but I was going to say yes.
Well, I'm out of practice with communications, Bill. We got to do more of this.
Do you have a mail satchel that you're going to open up and take out the envelopes?
I'm not sure.
You need a mailbag sound effect.
I actually have an old old mailbag, which is
not surprising.
I don't think anyone uses those. I used to use them as laundry bags
from when you were
college.
Like 20.
Yeah, exactly. Back with when the United States had like 47 states.
That's right. We had back before there's only 48 stars on the flag.
Yes. But it's funny because you brought up communication, and we've gotten a dozen or 15 emails from people, all different topics, but basically about communication. So I think one of the things that we're hearing from clients is that they're struggling with the best way to communicate compensation because of the resignation wave, the churn, the issue of people are trying to hire and bring people back, backfill, and part of it is that employees don't understand what they have, and that's HR's job to get them to understand and help them understand.
I feel like this isn't a new problem either. It's just a little more heightened. I can remember back like within the last few years at the end of webinars, Russ, when we would host them, we would ask people, all right, what else can we help you do? What do you need help with? And it was always, how do we communicate compensation to people, to managers, to employees? And now it's just, there's magnifying glass on it now with transparency.
Right.
Oh yeah, there was article after article on various total rewards, blogs back in 2018. Like, how do communications is critical in a tight labor market. And then, of course, in 2020 was communications is critical during times of change, and now we're back to tight labor market again. We're record job openings in the United States right now. So it's communications is critical. The other thing I think about when you are remote like this, and a lot of companies sound like they're going to be remote for a long, long time, if not forever, is when you get down to being remote, the number of differentiators that your office offers really gets much smaller, and compensation becomes an even more part of the focus.
Right.
And so it really becomes critical that you can effectively communicate the kinds of compensation you're offering. And I don't know, what have been sort of the bugaboos you have seen in the past, Bill, as the compensation ombudsman? What have been some of sort of the bugaboos, sort of the tough things for comp folks to communicate about to teams, to managers and employees? This isn't even in the show notes. I just threw a total curveball at Bill.
Well, first of all, I think this is a first to have the word bugaboo and ombudsman in the the sentence. So
bugaboo was twice, by the way.
Well, a double bugaboo.
Because you picked on my segue, so I had to go to vocabulary.
Wow.
I didn't say it was good vocabulary either.
Wish we were playing Scrabble. Anyway, so I forgot the question. The
tough things to communicate. Bill for 100.
I think it's everything. And I think the problem is that the purpose of communication is always a challenge. And what companies do often is they're communicating either legal terms, which doesn't help employees, it doesn't help humans understand.
Right.
Or they're communicating constraints or restrictions, things you can't do, or they're communicating like pure facts with no explanation or no story.
Right.
And it's sort of it's more about the why. Why do we do this? And the what do we want you to do? And one of the things, you see this is more in like incentives or other programs beyond base pay. The way you communicate the plan isn't to say, here is the formula. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's part of the communication. But the real communication is, we've changed the plan to encourage people to do X. We want these behaviors, and we want to stop, these bad behaviors. We want certain kinds of cultural changes. We want you to focus on selling this product. I mean, commission plans, I say this all the time on these podcasts. Commission plans are always very pure incentive programs because you have a very direct cause and effect. And sometimes you'll hear salespeople go, they're just trying to trick us into, selling more of the new product. And it's like, no, they're not actually trying to trick. Exactly. That's a fact. That's what they're trying to do. But we're laughing about it. Right. You should say that. It's like, we want you to focus on the new product, and therefore we're giving a 50% premium on commissions between now and the end of the year. Like, say it. I think if I had to summarize it in a sentence, which is hard for me to do with anything, it's communications lack empathy with the employee. It's like, what does the employee need to know, and how do you want the employee to interpret this communication?
I think that's right. I think one of the things that's really interesting is when we think about communicating to our employees, I love your point, Bill, that we focus on the legal so much. Like, what if we say the wrong thing? What if we commit to the wrong thing? We forget the fundamentals of communication, which, interesting, being in client experience, I see this all the time. When we think about how we're going to communicate to clients, we're really good about thinking about, well, what's the client's perspective? What do they want to hear? What are their problems they're trying to solve? But when we communicate to our employees, we forget all that. We don't think about the perspective of the employee. What are they trying to solve? What are they worried about? We think about, how do we protect the company during this communication? And we are less direct than we should be. Matt, do you see that from our clients too? What kind of things are you hearing about our clients talking about when they're trying to figure out how do they affect, what reports do they need to run to help effective communications? How do they sort of figure this? How are they working through this?
That's a good question. Some of the problems that they're running into are HR may be the ones communicating the strategy out to all the employees, but more often than not, they're working with their managers to communicate that out. And so how do you train these people, HR may be really effective at explaining, here's what we're paying and why we're paying that, what we're talking about, in the last few minutes. But then when you cast that out to, say hundreds of managers to communicate down to their employees, it's hard controlling that message. So they need some help in explaining compensation fundamentally, and what is base pay, what are your LTI, awards and that sort of stuff. But how do you control that message and then the company message on why we're paying this way and here's what you're getting as part of your total rewards with the company?
Yeah, I think that's right on. One of the things I thought it'd be interesting to kind of dive into, because I think it's really the hardest thing to communicate, is LTI or anything that's variable, right? You brought up variable pay, right? And that's tricky. Except, I've made this joke a lot whenever I get a chance to speak in front of our friend, anybody in compensation. We talk about the importance of comp strategy. I talk about the myths of comp, the commonly held myths, and one of the commonly held myths, I think, because it's apparent how we do our compensation, is clearly only salespeople care about money. Because they're the only ones with a compensation package that rewards performance. Right? Everyone else just gets a flat fee no matter how they do. And clearly this is incorrect, but there are places in organizations where we do try to fix that, right? We have bonus structures and we have LTI and we have retention bonuses and things like that. And I think when we do these sorts of incentives, it's really hard to communicate them because there's so many different types. And quite frankly, employees don't understand all the types. Their managers don't understand all the types. And I think a lot of times the HR team very rarely understands all the types. And if it's stock options, your comp team may not even understand all the types, depending on how they're issued.
Right. And sometimes that's even not part of HR. That's dealt with from legal or finance. So it's different parts of the organization own the decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think about and it's weird. Companies get and leadership teams get flummoxed and frustrated because they put all this money into these programs. They're like, well, we're going to invest all this money or give away all this ownership of the company to our employees. They should be excited and happy. But the problem is the way we position this stuff, it becomes an unsure thing.
Right.
And so my choice is I do have this thing that I don't really understand. I don't really understand its value. I don't understand how I can watch its value. I don't understand how much of it I actually end up getting. Or I can walk across the street for a guaranteed $10,000 a year raise.
Right.
And so that retention bonus that you thought was really clever and cost the company $2.8 million to roll out to the entire employee base does nothing. Right. Because no one understands what you just gave them. Does that resonate? Does that make sense?
Yes. And you're right. The LTI part is always a challenge. And I'm being nice. It's often a nightmare and that people don't understand it. Had a client recently share a communication program where they're rolling out some equity as a retention bonus. And it was like, what are we trying to tell the employees here? And it was about, legal terms and you if you're married, your spouse has to sign this and you're going to get, the plan document and I was like, but where's the part where you explain we're doing this because you're a great employee and we want you to stay and sort of what is this worth? Like there was no indication, which is it's both a problem in communication and a problem in with the vehicle,
right?
Equity or any equity derivative type award. You can't tell them what it's worth, but you can explain how it gets value.
Mm-hmm.
Give them examples. That's how I learn this stuff.
Yes.
Like if someone were to come to me and offer me stock options, I don't have a great understanding of all the different types and how they work.
Right.
Investing schedules and stuff like that.
Right.
Give me an example of how it would work, and that will resonate with me.
Have you seen examples either in your own past or some of our clients do it where it actually is effective? Like, is there an easy? Because I'm with you. Like LTI and bonus structures can often be very confusing. Can you think of any that were good? Because I can think of many bad ones. I think the list of good ones seems very short.
I've written some good ones.
Well, what techniques did you use, Bill, to
sort of like like what they teach you in school?
And by the way, did anybody else tell you they were good, or you just feel they were good?
Oh, just me.
Okay, fair.
Sort of the way you write a news article,
Mm-hmm.
The headline, and then you work your way down into the specifics, and talk about this is what we're trying to do. This is why we're doing it. This is how it works. And a lot of analogies, because one of the issues with the difference between options and stock or restricted stock, asterisks on that, because that's another contentious issue for communication, is really, are you getting rewarded for the upside? In other words, your value is based on where the value of this company goes from today moving forward.
Right.
The more we collectively, as a group, increase the value of the company, the more money you will make, Russ. Versus stock, which is it's based on the value of the company today. You do make more value as the company goes up, but you lose value. Your reward becomes less valuable if the value of the company goes down. Options start at zero. They can't go down. So it's all upside. And side note, options encourage swinging for the fences, because you want big wins, because you have no risk of losing what you were rewarded. Stock, full shares of stock, have the tendency to make people protect the value that you gave them on the day of the grant. So they tend to be more conservative in their actions going forward because they don't want to risk losing what they already got. And there's all these psychological studies that talk about that. Often the awards aren't granted based on based on their incentive value or the outcome of the incentive. They're granted based on what the company has, what it typically uses, what the board likes better, and often, sadly, the tax and accounting treatment of the vehicle. Because stock has a adverse tax to the employees if you don't structure it a certain way. And again, you see why it's hard to communicate these things.
Because there's all these extra.
Yeah, every time I say something, there's three footnotes. Footnotes are never good for communication.
But I think that brings up a good example where, and I love, Matt, your point about examples. Right. So if you imagine the communication, and it sounds like you kind of did this, Bill, because you mentioned footnotes. So instead of trying to get all the legalese in with the value, you put the legalese on page 2 or in a footnote. And page 1 is just super clear with your value. What you want the employee to see there is the $ potential. Right. And the why you're doing it. And so the two parts, I think, are I think the why is super important so that you understand, why aren't you just giving me this money now like a normal paycheck? Oh, because the upside is much higher. Right. But it's not certain. And one example, another example like this, to your point, where the difference between like equity and options, I'm not going to name the company, but I happen to know someone who works at a very large company, and he's reached a level now where they don't get merit increases at all every year. They simply get actual shares of stock. And the company happens to be doing very well in the current climate. And so that excites the employees because that's going up, and they know exactly how much value that is, because you can literally look on the stock market. They know they're going to get X number of shares every year. And so it's less about, I hope I get a 3% merit increase, and more about, I hope our stock keeps going up, which of course is what the employer wants, because you're going to work harder in all ways to get that. So that's one of those great, and I think, and the employer literally says, this is why we're doing this. Yes, we want you to be an advocate for the company. We want you to work hard, but we want you to feel well rewarded. And I instead of hiding all that, just put it all out there. Everybody knows there's two sides to this whole plan.
We're aligned. You get richer if the company gets richer. And it's base pay is more. That's a cost. And the company could go down 50%, and you still get the same base pay. You may lose your job, but you get the same base pay. But the value of your equity goes down, or it zeroes out, depending on the type of equity.
Yep. And I think that clarity in communications is important now, too. When we talk about short-term incentives and hazard pay and all these other things we're doing because unemployment's super high right now, or there is this extra risk going on in the world. I think we just be very direct with our employees and say, we're doing this because we know you have choices, because we know the competition across the street is paying more, because we know unemployment benefits are super high. So we are taking action. This is not permanent. When it all goes away, this will probably go away. Just be straight up with your team.
Well, I think that you need to have a communication strategy as well and a regular cadence to talk about these things. Because I feel like a lot of times it comes up if there is a disgruntled employee, someone leaving, or asking for more money and not getting it. And then you start talking through the compensation strategy, not just talking about LTI or anything like that, but variable pay, base pay, the additional benefits and perks and that sort of stuff. Right now, you need to be a lot more proactive with that in communicating that, whether it's, I don't know, departmental all hands meetings, company all hands meetings, making sure HR is meeting regularly with managers so that they're communicating this stuff out. Because if you get to those situations where an employee is thinking about leaving, has come with a different offer from another company, you're too late at that point, and you're likely to lose that person no matter how good of a job you do of explaining what they're getting today.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. In fact, I've had a policy for many years with my teams that I tell my employees up front, like, if you are concerned about your compensation, come to me first, because I will not do a counteroffer. So if because I think it's too late for me then. Like I should be helping you before then, and if I'm not helping you before then, so I want there to be proactive communication on both sides. To your point, Matt, at a regular cadence, and this goes back to just how you work with your team and it's manager training, right? About compensation as a part of the performance, as a constant part of your discussion around that. I've seen some good and bad stories there. We talked about a little bit about LTI. We talked a little bit about variable pay. Another one that can get you into sort of some trouble when you're trying to communicate is like spiffs or one-time bonuses. Have you got any good stories about those, Bill?
No, no,
or bad stories.
I think when you ask for a good story, you mean a bad story.
I do.
But
a juicy story.
See, look at we're communicating.
Yeah, right.
Use the right words though, Russ.
Bugaboo.
Bugaboo.
Yeah. What are the spiff bugaboos, Bill? Look at that. I got a lot of alliteration going on there.
Now I forgot where I was going. The issue with spiffs, I think, is that they are by definition a short term, like a once and done kind of thing. I'm going to do a little callback to when you said that. That's critical because anything that you do for employees assume is an endowment, like that, like you've raised the level of their pay.
I got a bonus last year, Bill. Where's my bonus this year?
Yes, yeah.
And why is it not the same amount?
Why is it not more than last year's bonus?
Exactly, it shouldn't go down.
Stop. But yes, that's exactly what happens. And and you want, when you put a new bonus plan in place, you want it to go up and down. Ideally, you want it to start with a payment so people know it's real, and then have it vary, not necessarily a lot, but so that they understand that this is not an entitlement. So, with spiffs, it's sort of like, a little nugget of, pay for performance. We want a certain thing to happen in a certain time frame, and we're going to pay you a certain dollar amount for that. The issue is, like, how do you get that out? It's got to be fast. People have to understand it. It's got to go away. Otherwise, it's not really a spiff. And you want to make sure that it's kind of fairly given out, and that
so it's measurable.
It's measurable, but also it's like, if I give it to Matt and not to Russ, there has to be a very valid reason, because you kind of want the energy around it, and it does always create this little bit of friction. Is why is Matt getting this special bonus that I'm not getting?
Yeah, the objectivity required in compensation is really important.
Right.
I think it really has to be very objective.
Yep. And so I think that's where you run into problems with those. And you hear it. It generally, the way it normally plays out, to make this kind of obvious to the listeners here, is a department or group with it, like a team will have a program, and a comparable team or department will not have it. And then you get this resentment of, why are they getting it? Right. And it's like, is it an issue of what they actually do? No employee ever actually thinks that. They always think it's like, our boss is dumb, or we're like, they don't value what we do. They
like
don't
his department better, or her department. Right.
Exactly. Or that person that the department head there fights harder for their employees. And so you can create this negative impact on the group that didn't get the spiff. So the spiff can be determined measurably to be a success, but then you have turnover or lower employee satisfaction somewhere else in the organization, a little bit of whack-a-mole kind of thing going on, which is one of my bugaboos.
I'd say just from my experience in rolling out spiff plans, having that end date is crucial, because I've run into issues before too, where I've like carried one over from one quarter to the next quarter, and being proactive and saying, all right, at the end of this quarter, this spiff is going to be done. We're going to be moving on to something else, and making sure that you're proactive with that. Not that you're getting to the end of a month or a quarter and saying, all right, it's going to end next week.
Right. Spiffs are like the epitome of the SMART goals for those of you who, it's like specific, measurable, action-oriented, time-bound. Realistic. Sorry. Well, I live in Boston. They're SMART goals. SMART.
I think there'd have to be an H. There'd have to be an H instead of the
hard.
Harder. Yeah.
No.
Hard. That's great. It's great. I think that's a lot of good points there on the complexities of spiffs. One other thing we're getting a little short on time here, but one other thing I wanted to mention when it comes to compensation communications, there was a story. We were talking a little bit when we were kind of going over maybe some of the topics we could cover on this show. We talked a little bit about, should we have a compensation handbook? Like, should organizations sort of have sort of a fundamental document that sort of explains a lot of what we talked about today and the importance of how comp works and what the different types of compensation your organization offers, the whys of them, the pros and cons of each category, maybe why some teams get type A and don't get type B, to your guys' point earlier about spiffs. Have you guys seen that used effectively in different organizations? Is it a lot of work that no one ends up reading, kind of like the employee handbook? I mean, is there an effective way to do this in just one big document? Or is that not the right way to do it?
That's a great question. I love the sort of interim sub-question of, or is it just like a big book that nobody ever reads? I kind of feel like that, and I apologize to, clients of my former consulting firms who bought those things. I mean, I think that
who you wrote them for.
Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes they're important to have, but I'm not sure that how much they're used. And just looking around our office, apart from one person's office here, actually two people, me and finance. There's not a lot of paper. There's not a lot of everything's sort of online, which, yes, I realize a book can be online, but maybe more of a Wikipedia kind of environment, which is more what people are used to. I'm not sure how much you want employees updating things.
Well, what about if you had a total reward statement, if it had the glossary on there, or on a second page, that base pay means this.
You want the information at the time of consumption, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to read the comp handbook and then remember it when I get my paycheck.
Correct.
But to your point, Matt, if there's a total reward statement and then page 2 has the definitions of everything on your statement, and to our point earlier, maybe it has the definitions of all the different categories that different teams get, so you can see them. And then you can go back to your boss and be like, well, how come we don't get spiffs? I see it's on this list of things. Why do we qualify for that?
Right, and the comp statement could refer back to or link back to
more detailed
the document.
Yeah, or that's how videos or whatever you decide to do is the best way to learn.
Right. Or the total reward statement could just have a glossary of the things that roll up to that position. So if it's a job that is not commission eligible, commission is not going to be on that total reward statement because they wouldn't be earning commission. I
would not put the word commission on the statement because I guarantee you some decent percentage of employees will go, why don't I get a commission?
So this does argue for total reward statements or at least some sort of
total reward communication.
Yeah, and the rewards communication in general, I think it has to happen, and I think it should happen. And again, if you have different kinds of comp cycles, where there's different kinds of comp events throughout the year, maybe that's when you tie the specific definitions and details to those, so that it's top of mind when it's top of mind.
Right, and you can link them to performance reviews or timing of of paid discussions between the manager and the employee. Again, there's a lot.
You can link back to that employee's handbook I just said nobody reads, so you can actually read parts of it.
Well, right. I mean, it's a reference guide, not beach reading.
Right. It's really a dictionary, not exactly, not a mystery novel.
And the like when we started this discussion, half an hour ago or whatever, it's like every time you look at a definition of something on a comp statement, there's 5 other terms that need to be defined. So you have this exponential increase in amount of information, and you want people to follow the lead to the thing they don't understand or the thing they want more detail on.
Exactly. So I wanted to leave us with one more thought about communication, particularly how it's important not only for us as comp professionals and HR professionals to communicate effectively with our managers and their teams, but also how important it is to help educate employees on the compensation conversation from their perspective. Because Bill, you shared a story with me that I thought was really interesting about the manager who was hiring two people for the same job. He hired both of them. One happened to be a man, one happened to be a woman. And the man, when they went into salary negotiations, the manager made an offer. And then what happened, Bill?
You should have prompted me for this.
Do you not remember? Because I can finish the story, but I thought it was your story. I didn't want to steal it from you.
The manager made an offer, and the man negotiated, asked for more, and the manager thought, well, this person is a really great candidate. I want him on board, and got approval to give him more. The woman who applied for the same job didn't ask for more and didn't get more.
But she still got hired because he needed the people.
Right. And so they were equally qualified and, equally, at least for the purpose of this story, equally rated as potential hires. So they were even people, but one ended up with more money simply because he asked, which, loops into this. There's a bunch of studies about this, and I do think it's getting better, but men are much more likely to ask for more money in a salary negotiation or in an interview situation than women. And that sticks in my mind as an infamous study because of where it was done. It was done at Harvard Business School, where they actually did an analysis of the students graduating and whether or not they negotiated for starting salaries at their jobs after going to one of the premier business schools in the world and after having to have taken a class in negotiation. And the men were still much more likely to negotiate for more money and therefore more likely to get it. I guess it's not a foregone conclusion, but it worked. And so it's a problem, in that when you're a hiring manager or an HR person, you should be watching for that. And I think it's much less, it's improving, and women are getting, more comfortable with asking for more because they know that's that's
becoming
an issue.
more well known. Yeah,
the more we talk about it, but being on the HR side or the employer or the manager side, you should be aware of that. And I mean, this just happened to be the perfect scenario, perfect storm of bad in that it was two very equal candidates for a very comparable job, the same person, same company hiring them, and letting this pay inequity happen without, there was no bad intent. Anyway, I think
hopefully the HR team caught that and corrected, but maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But
yes, they did, because that's where I heard the story from.
Yeah, there you go. So
it did get corrected.
Well, that's good news. But that goes back to communication, right? So it's really important for your managers to see that and know that and figure out that too. Well, thank you both again, gentlemen. I've really enjoyed this conversation. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you want to get into our mailbag, be a part of the show.
How do they do that, Russ?
What you want to do is send an email to coffee@payscale.com or reach out to us on Twitter @Payscale, and hopefully you'll be in the next mailbag for Comp and Coffee.
We love good ideas.
We do. We have so few. We need all the help we can get.
No, we have no shortage of good ideas, but we like your ideas too.
Their ideas are always better.
Yes.
Comp and Coffee is a PayFactors production dedicated to the compensation community. We welcome your feedback. Send email to coffee@payfactors.com, tweet us @payfactors, or share your thoughts in our PayFactors community tile. Until next time, keep your coffee hot and your data fresh.